Hello, my name is Bob Ash. I'm a lawyer with the estate planning practice at the law firm of RiezmanBerger in Clayton, Missouri, and I am going to give a summary of a new form of a trust called the Qualified Spousal Trust. So the purpose of this video is to give a brief overview of the Qualified Spousal Trust, which is a new trust permitted by Missouri law in the state of Missouri since August of 2011. And by way of background, the Qualified Spousal Trust is a Missouri trust. It's a Missouri statute, and it's intended to act for married couples. So this video really also is for married couples who have Missouri property or who want to create a Missouri trust. And so the overview of the Qualified Spousal Trust will be as follows. The Qualified Spousal Trust is a form of a revocable trust. Revocable trusts have been around for hundreds of years, literally. They're an effective form of estate planning. They're a will substitute that serve to pass assets at the time of death to the desired beneficiaries on the desired terms. All revocable trusts have also the advantage of providing trustee succession in the event the grantor of the trust, which is the person who creates the trust, were to become incapacitated. In that event, a successor trustee can come in and the revocable trust can continue to own assets, and the successor trustee of the trust can continue to manage the assets without the need for seeking a guardianship or custodianship in the court to deal with an incapacitated person's assets. So that's an advantage of a revocable trust. The Qualified Spousal Trust is a marvelous estate planning tool for married couples that tend to own many of their assets in joint names, because the Qualified Spousal Trust allows what we call a best of all worlds scenario, and that's a scenario where a married couple can still own assets in a form of joint ownership. They can own assets in a way that are owned inside of a trust, so they have the advantages of a revocable trust, and that assets, they don't go through probate. We don't have to worry about guardianship with trust assets. And at the same time, a Qualified Spousal Trust allows couples to plan for the estate tax and to defer or avoid estate tax by using the estate tax exemption and the marital deduction. So the Qualified Spousal Trust has all of these advantages over merely jointly owned property between a husband and wife. And then there's one more very important advantage, which is one of the primary reasons why there is a Qualified Spousal Trust. It requires a little bit of background. When a husband and wife own property jointly in their joint names, that's called tenants by the entirety's property, and a byproduct of that form of joint ownership is that a creditor of one of the spouses cannot reach assets that the spouses own together. The basic legal theory being that the marital unit owns the assets. Neither of the spouses as individuals own the assets, so if a creditor has a claim against one spouse, a creditor could reach the assets of one spouse, but a creditor cannot reach the assets that are owned jointly because neither individual owns the assets, the marital unit owns the assets. So a Qualified Spousal Trust is a similar effect with respect to creditor protection in that clients can move assets into the Qualified Spousal Trust, therefore they can do estate tax planning, they can avoid guardianship and conservatorship issues, and they can avoid probate at either of the spouse's death, and they don't lose the creditor protection that they have while they own assets as tenants by the entireties. So a Qualified Spousal Trust allows property that was held by husband and wife as tenants by the entireties and then transferred into the trust to continue to have the same effectiveness and protection from creditors that the property had while it was jointly owned. So we call it the best of all worlds device because you can use the trust, have all the advantages of a trust, and still have the creditor protection that the husband and wife had while they owned the property jointly. So that will give you a brief overview of the Qualified Spousal Trust. Who wants to use a Qualified Spousal Trust? Clients who have to think about the estate tax. We've done a separate video that talks about the current estate tax and the coming estate tax exemptions. But for purposes of this video, I would tend to say for a married couple whose assets are approaching or clearly exceed $1 million, the Qualified Spousal Trust would be a vehicle that should be investigated. For clients who are under that, a Qualified Spousal Trust could also be an effective estate planning tool. All of these will depend on a client's own circumstances, what their objectives are, what their assets are like, and whether the trust is right for them. The Qualified Spousal Trust can also be effective for anybody who could have a creditor claim in the future, whether from a negligence liability, whether someone is in a high-risk profession like a medical or in engineering or an accounting or a legal profession that might be higher risk and may have malpractice concerns. Highly leveraged borrowers may have creditor issues at some point in time, as could business owners who have given personal guarantees. So for those kinds of individuals, they might consider a qualified spousal trust as a form of owning property inside of a trust in order to get the advantages of a trust, but still maintain the protection from creditors that they had while they own property in joint names with a husband and wife. By necessity, this has been a very brief introduction to the qualified spousal trust, and all estate planning strategies have exceptions and limitations and should be tailored to any client's own particular circumstances. So we would like to speak to you about your situation and your circumstances and whether the qualified spousal trust would be right for you. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.